All right. We got about one more minute. Oh, okay. Clock's wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. It is now 6 o'clock on Monday, May 20th. So I will call this meeting of the Copper Canyon Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Our first order of business is public input. Citizens can make comments to the commission. We ask citizens who wish to speak on agenda items to sign in on the sheet provided on the table at the back of the council chambers. There's a 3-minute time limit for each speaker. Pursuant to state open meeting laws, the Planning and Zoning Commission cannot discuss or take action on items not posted on the agenda. Thank you. And obviously the public, we are going to have a public hearing later on to address the noticed issue, which is the development plan that we're looking at here for Jernigan. So is there anyone who wishes to speak in the public input section? I've got several lists here, but I think it's Ted and Robin and Larry. I think you all are going to talk about the agenda item, not the public item. Okay, so we'll move on. I would like to ask Troy for development updates. We know what's going on around town.
Yes, Commissioner. So a couple of things. Williams Ranch, as you guys seen that development come online, we've issued 6 permits on Friday. So they'll have 6 homes going up. They have mobilized their construction trailer. So they're just getting that site set up, which will be on the back side of the development in that cul-de-sac. So that development is well underway. And as you guys know, Toll Brothers.
So they're all,
Yeah.
all 6 are Toll.
Yes, all 30 homes are going to be under Toll Brothers. So they're going to be the builder for all 30 homes. And so, like I said, we released those 6 on Friday. So those are well underway. So that's what's going on in Williams Ranch, along with they're finishing up their entryway. With how the PD was written, they got a little extended time to do that. But they will not receive any COs until that front entryway is complete. So that's kind of our catch right there. That the other development that's been recent is Copper Knolls Estates. And so we have had some concerns about that southwest corner, that water pooling on the road. So I met with them today. I think they've got a solution that they're going to try to work as long as we don't get any more rain and it stays wet. But one of the things that they're going to do is go mow it, see how that hasn't been maintained over time, and see what they need to scrape off to get that water to flow to that surface drain that's just right there about 10 yards away. So they're working on that so that we can make that road, so the road does not flood during a 1-inch rain event. That's everything. So they're very aware of that. And so they're looking for solutions on that as well. But those are my 2 development updates.
Why wouldn't they just go ahead and dig that part ditch out?
Well, they want to see what's there because as you know, as you go further west,
covered with vegetation.
Yeah, so they're gonna mow it, kind of see what's there, see what the elevations are, and get some of that to drain off so they can actually start working on it.
You can't work on somebody.
They're just trying to avoid a big muddy mess and getting that off. But they want to do some
their mower out.
Yeah, so they want to do some minimal things to try to push some of that water out of there. But that's all I've got.
All right. Okay. So we have 2 consent items, which is approving the April 15th minutes of the Joint Council Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and also to approve the April 29th minutes of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, separate. Did anybody have any comments on any of the minutes?
I had one question at the last council meeting. Deputy Mayor Pro Tem Castillo brought up a correction on the minutes, and it looks like that was corrected.
Yes. Yes, it was
that
more of
a posting issue. It was on the internet, so yes.
It was on the internet, not actually. In the
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bill. Okay.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Second.
A second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously approved. All right. So now we move to discussion item. So as a reminder to everybody, what we're going to do is we're going to have some discussion among ourselves. We're going to invite the developer and related parties to answer questions and speak about what's going on. Then we will hold our discussion. We'll move into the public hearing where we will take input from the public and hear the public. And once we've heard from the public, then we'll go back and then have further discussion and consider the action. So we will actually talk about it twice, but we'll have the public hearing in the middle so that the public can hear kind of what our discussion points were before they go into the public hearing. Does everybody follow that? Okay, couple of general notes here. I wanted to one of the questions I think is we were looking at the development plan tonight, and then eventually we will look at the preliminary plat. The reason we're not looking at the preliminary plat tonight is because the development plan has to be approved before we look at the preliminary plat. And when they say approved, it has to go to the council for approval. So, because no point in us discussing a development plan and then a preliminary plat, only to have the development plan go to the council and be rejected. So that would just be a waste of time. So that's why the only noticed item tonight is the development plan, one set of drawings. Sheila, are there extra sets on the table or?
There's one extra.
One extra set. If anybody needs a set of the development plan, there's some on the table. Also, let's see. I think one of the issues here, which well, let me just read what it is that we're going to talk about before we talk about it. Discuss and consider a recommendation to the Copper Canyon Town Council regarding the Jernigan Estates development plan, allowing for the development of approximately 12 acres and to allow for the development of 6 single-family lots located at 545 Jernigan Road, Copper Canyon, Texas, 75007. As all of you who attended the town council meeting knew that we had previously approved the development plan, recommended to the council. Council considered it and did not move forward on it. They had some objections, some issues they felt needed to be cleared up. So the reason we're reconsidering it now is because there have been changes to what we approved before. So I think perhaps the first thing I'd like to do is ask Michael to kind of, or your engineer. I saw him here somewhere. There's a beard back there. Okay. To one of you to step up and tell us what's different on this development plan from what we looked at before. What are the major changes? And come up to the podium, please.
So I'd like to go on record that our preliminary plat was also approved at that past P&Z meeting as well. That was an omission that I heard.
No.
It went to council, guys. Both of them did.
You proved the development plan, not the.
It's on video. I mean, it is.
Just the development plan.
All right. So we passed on all fronts, checked all y'all's boxes, and we were doing better with the engineering out there than the present situation. And a couple of the neighbors had concerns on both sides. So we yielded to the neighbor to the north, and we have voluntarily decided to put a berm in on the north side, and that's been the only addition to the plans.
Okay, so that's that whole northwest corner. I see the berm. Did it change the shape or size of the pond anyway? I mean,
the pond is it's about the same. It may move around a little bit, but this is something we proposed the first year, January, February, and now that the neighbors seek professional consultation, sees that this is probably the best option is to keep the 2 ponds separate, and that's what we're doing. And we put it on our property, and we've agreed to bear the cost of it.
okay.
Michael, just real quick, with those changes, I just want to ask that with the changes, all that is still in the limited drainage easement that's dedicated, the drainage easement
It is.
on the original, so it stays in the original one that was created, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so question for town administrator. The objections that the town council stated in their last meeting had to do with the easement and the HOA and some of these legal documents. And I want to hit it clear that that's not what we're talking about tonight. It'd be interesting for us to know, we'd like to know, but it's not, we are only responsible for the subdivision and the planning ordinances, not the specific terms of an HOA agreement or the specific terms of an easement.
Right. So y'all are making sure all the zoning's correct. They've met all the requirements related to that.
Right. So with that, just for our curiosity and for the crowd, can you talk to us about where you stand on your first the easement and secondly the relationships with the neighbors? I mean, are there any agreements or, I mean, we'll hear from them later on. So
Yeah, so
sure.
we've agreed to the berm, obviously, to satisfy the neighbor on the north. We had a meeting up here. Was it Monday, Tuesday, maybe of last week, I believe? It was last week. To try and work with Larry on his property, and he lives to the west. And you know, our plan, our preliminary passes the way it is with the engineering. He's wanting to do something on his property. He's wanting us to move our termination, our drain termination, our outflow over onto his property to a tank on his side. And we're in talks about that. So I wouldn't say satisfied, we're in talks, but we do satisfy all the codes just the way we are, maintaining everything on our site. And again, we're trying to work with the neighbor next door.
All right. And did you have you thus far made any changes in the easement with Mr. Singh yet, or is it that?
So seeing that's preliminary plat, right?
Yes, that's preliminary plat. Again, I said this is curiosity. We're not.
I know, but I've ran this through you guys, both plats, and then I had it at council and it got turned down that night because of this berm we're adding. And now we're back and it's just a development plan. So I found that out before I walked in the door, and it's kind of like a punch in the gut, you know, and my attorney will speak here in a minute on that. So I'm here a little rattled, a little upset, and we've already, that agreement, which is preliminary plat stuff, is already done and signed off on by the homeowner. And we've done several drafts going through our attorney and y'all's attorney, and it is approved and it's signed and the town has it.
Okay. I just asking for an update. That's all. It sounds like there's nothing new.
Yeah, the preliminary plat stuff's done. And like I said, it's been through here. I mean,
Did you want your attorney to speak, or do you want us to wait till we have?
he'll speak when it's time. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm satisfying what I need to satisfy as far as questions and legitimate issues go.
Okay. All right. I think what we go to now is it's 6:14, and I'd like to call the public hearing. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
The Planning and Zoning Commission will conduct a public hearing for the purpose of hearing any and all comments and consider recommendation of town council regarding the Jernigan Estates Development Plan, allowing for the development of approximately 12 acres to allow for the development of 6 single-family lots located at 545 Jernigan Road, Copper Canyon, Texas 75007. So we had 3 people who put in requests to speak. The first one appears was Larry Johnson. Would you like to come to the microphone? Or do you want, or do you think Ted beat you? Huh? Well, that doesn't surprise me. Ted, would you like to take the podium?
It's fine, listen.
Ted Strancic, 1020 North Berry Trail Court. Just a couple of follow-on issues that come out of the original documentation engineering that was submitted. And again, we had an issue with the Copper Knoll Estates on proof of ownership. Has proof of ownership been established, Sheila?
Yes, MR Properties and Development LLC.
It has. This preliminary plat hasn't come up yet,
Right.
but there is a specific requirement in our ordinances. Well, for a development period. And I think I've sent all that notice to you once before. And it's a requirement that the owner does state who the owner is and what their proper address is. And that's an ordinance requirement. And you did it for the Copper Knoll Estates. And I'm just asking, has it been done for this?
Interesting. Developer probably answered this, that Mr. Singh still owns the property. This one. But I can look at it.
I don't want to belittle the point, but it is a specific requirement of our ordinances that the developer and owner establish who the owner is. And it's directed to you as a secretary, and you have full motion to do whatever you want with that data. So evidently it's still an open item. When I look at the drawings, again, there's an address for MR Properties, but it turns out to be your address. Is that the proper address?
I believe the ordinance reads owner, developer, and or agent is what it says. And or agent. And it has been verified. Council knows, I mean, this Paul, he lives next door to Councilman Larry. They know each other. He knows who's the owner.
I understand that, but there is a procedural issue. It's an ordinance and it should be complied with, just that simple.
But the town knows Paul owns the land.
The only person that has the ruling on that is that secretary right there. Again, from the standpoint of the drawing package, there's the footnote at the bottom again, Chris, about preliminary drawing release for construction. I thought we had an agreement that needed to be wiped out.
Yeah, it is incorrect, but these are the same drawings that they haven't changed those yet.
Okay. In looking at the plat layout, when you look at the site map, it shows the development of the 6 lots, but not the detention pond or whatever you're going to call it. Is there a reason that it's not shown on the site map as part of the development?
Or what is it that's you're thinking?
If you look at the site map and it's shaded in, the
Oh, you're talking
detention,
about the lower left corner. It doesn't need to be. That's just that's an overview site map. I mean, it doesn't have any other rivers, creeks, anything else in it from any other part of the town. That's just supposed to be a little snapshot. It is shown on the drawing up above in the detail.
Ted, if you recall, we asked him to put this on 3 different drawings. And so, that drawing is a site plan, gets rid of all the topography and all that, just so that we can clearly see the lots and the roads and those type things. And then as you progress to the next page, it gets into more detail as it relates to drainage. So that's why it's not shown on that plan.
I think the rest of the development appears to be in order and quite frankly, in great detail. The issue of a private easement will come up later, so I won't address that. The type of fence, is that something that is discussed at this point, or does that go later?
That's for later. It's not required for a development plan.
Okay. Will the Singh Road be a private road?
That's the second. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Will the Singh Road be a private road?
Yes. Yes. Private road.
Will
The
it-
town is not responsible for maintaining it. No, it's correct.
Is it going to be a gated community?
I think they decided not to, I'm not sure. We had a gate on there, the original one got taken off, right?
So it's not going to be,
Not,
okay.
if it were going to be, it would be on.
That's why I asked the question. HOA issue is for a later determination, but I will take a position that an HOA with only 6 houses is really not an HOA. And I think serious consideration should be given in the long run to addressing that situation appropriately, and something that I'm definitely not in favor of. Inasmuch as there was some discussion between the developer and the landowners, have you reached any agreement with the adjoining landowners concerning how you're going to address the drainage issue? Or is it still up in the air?
Is he supposed to be talking to me? I just answered.
No, you're just,
I just answered those questions.
you're speaking, he can answer separately.
Okay.
He does, this is not a debate back and forth.
So does have the developer had formal discussions with the landowners concerning the drainage issue?
Yes, we know he has, and they will be speaking here in a little while, so.
Okay.
we can leave that one for them.
And I guess nothing can be done about discussing the detention pond yet. That's going to be part of the preliminary plat?
Yes.
Okay, because there's a lot of issues there that need to be discussed. So, thank you.
If I've got some comments here, but we'll do them after we hear the rest of the public hearing. So I don't know, Robin, were you or Larry next? Okay. Gonna leave Larry as a cleanup hitter.
Pardon?
We're gonna leave Larry as a cleanup hitter,
There you go.
the closer.
So for the record, I'm Robin Douglas Davis, 581 Jernigan Road is my address. I am the northern property owner, along with my husband, who is working the Colonial today. So sorry, he's doing something more fun than we are. So we have worked with Paul and have an agreement in principle to complete. They have agreed to complete a berm on their property to prevent any backwater from their pond from coming onto our property. And we certainly appreciate that. The details that we have discussed but are not included on the drawing or the documents. And I feel like that they need to be documented are at the meeting, the last meeting that Michael was referring to. They talked about moving the location to the south off the fence about 10 feet. The height had been discussed at 614. I'm a little worried about that. I'd love to see it maybe just 6 to 12 inches higher for the freeboard, and to prevent, considering we have a really rainy, during the rainy season, if we have a particularly rainy year, we don't end up with it overflowing that berm. And I'd like to see it extend just a little further east, almost approximately in line with the arena there. The other thing that we have not discussed are the construction details of the berm. I would like to see the berm being constructed with standard accepted construction methodology, so it's properly constructed by a competent construction professional, someone whose total job it is to move dirt in this capacity. And I'd like that detailed in the documents. As a adjacent landowner, separate from these documents where we are right now. We've had a lot of silt and erosion take place already. Our pond is brown, which it's never been before in the 34 years that we've lived here. It's brown with a thick green crud on the top of it, and we've not had any of that before. I don't know if we need an additional silt fence there, or when we had they put the silt fence up, they put 2 up, but they weren't in series. They were separate areas. So I don't know if we need an additional silt fence in series or what we can do about that, but I think we need to do something so that that doesn't wash and create issues, because my cows are drinking that water. So eventually I eat that water. And then, like I said, we just want to make sure that the construction's done by a competent professional, that's their profession, is doing these sorts of things, not just somebody that would like to drive a bulldozer. So that's my comments as an adjacent citizen or an adjacent landowner, and we're working with them to get that done. I just don't see it reflected in the documents yet. And before those are approved, I'd like to see it reflected in the documents. As a general citizen, and this may not be the particular place in the events that happen, but just something to think about, the HOA and the pond ownership relationship. Both the HOA and the pond ownership, and I don't know if the pond ownership was actually the LLC that Paul created or if it's still under Paul, but the HOA for sure would be judgment proof. We just want to make sure as a town, one, that nothing bad happens, that we don't get any little kids in there that, that would be the worst thing. And nobody wants to see that. I know Paul doesn't want to see it. He has young kids, and that would be the last thing that anybody would want. So I think that we just need to think about that going forward and think about the liability for the town if ownership of those lands are judgment proof, so that it doesn't fall on the town.
And Robert, I got a quick question as it relates to all your thoughts around the berm and height and distances away from the fence line. You spoke about agreement and having an agreement with that. Have you discussed that with the developer, and have y'all gotten anything in writing in a draft form or anything like that?
It was discussed at the meeting that they had it here. I thought it was last Friday.
Last Friday.
Was I wrong? Am I wrong about that day? But it is. It's not in the location we discussed on Friday. It's right up against fence, so it's not in the location we discussed on Friday. And then the construction details about and I ask about, okay, so what is the standard accepted? Right. And then it's got to be graded and compacted and more dirt and compacted and more dirt and compacted. And then the edges coming off with the bulldozer, and the edges, what's the proper terminology, where they are graded down so that they're at a proper slant.
That is.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just bringing up that that's something that I would like to see that we have agreement on, so that there's no question and there's no issue going forward. Because I want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, so that there are no disagreements or misunderstandings later. And I think that y'all want to do the same thing.
Thank you. All right. The next is Larry Johnson. Uh-oh. It's loaded.
Hi, I'm Larry Johnson, 535 Jernigan Road. First, some good news. Friday, I think we had a productive meeting with the engineers. Chris was there, John Spires, our engineer was there, Paul was there, Mr. Kennedy was there, I was there. I think there was a sense, and Chris can weigh in on this. I think there was a sense that we had a good idea in terms of how to deal with the outflow of water onto my property. I don't know where all that discussion has progressed. Michael, that's between you two. But Chris, I think that was a good discussion. And it aimed for a long-term solution so that we could minimize the damage to water flowing. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
So yes, on Friday, we discussed a potential downstream solution that would alleviate the weir and the riprap and some of the oversurface, and instead put it into an enclosed drainage, capture it up at the pond, and then outlet it via culverts onto Mr. Johnson's property. Part of that discussion included a downstream easement that Larry would grant to allow those pipes to be constructed onto his property and maintained, in which case gives Larry an opportunity to take the water how he wants and where he wants and develop either a further downstream pond or to deal with that kind of as he wants to farther on his property. And so, yeah, I agree that it's a more positive solution than what we have right now.
So I, again, appreciate, it was a long meeting. It was 2.5+ hours and great exchange of ideas. So, thank you for kind of shepherding us through that because we're not engineers. That gentleman is, this gentleman is, and Mr. Spires, our engineer is. So that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece is, aren't I lucky? I get to participate in a project where I get to spend $100,000 to $150,000 to deal with a future flooding issue. And anybody who wants to sign up tonight for sharing in that, I welcome that. But let's move on to a couple of things that are more pertinent. I actually, as a council member who cannot participate in this process, I've become very, very interested in the development ordinances. And yet one of the things that strikes me, and I know Chris has a wonderful checklist that he uses for engineering purposes. But, at the beginning of the engineering design manual, and I'm sure you've all read it and are very familiar with it, goals and objectives of the town. One, establish and implement policy and criteria so that new development does not create or increase flooding problems, cause erosion, or pollute downstream water bodies. 2, facilitate the continuation of comprehensive watershed planning that results in an integrated system of public and private stormwater infrastructure. 3, minimize flood risk to citizens and properties and stabilize or decrease stream bank stream bank and channel erosion on creeks, channels, and streams. I am confident that this astute, meticulous body takes this into account, and somewhere there is a written record of how you viewed this and what your conclusion was. And I'm hopeful to be able to see that. This again supersedes anything after that. This is fundamental. And I haven't seen this up to date. So again, just hoping to see that. The last thing is I saw the easement agreement. It's interesting. It's kind of circular. Goes from Paul to Paul's LLC. I think, and I read it twice. I think I missed it. I didn't see any of the maintenance requirements in there. I'm sure somewhere there's maintenance requirements for a body of water that large. But again, we'll look for that. This is one of the larger bodies of static water in this town. So it's going to be interesting to see, are we talking aerator ponds? Are we talking twice a year, once a year inspections? And the way that that agreement works now, it's circular. So it's person to personal LLC. If that LLC is not there, guess what, town? You're on the hook. And I don't know that the town's up for that one. But anyways, it's just things to think about. So thank you.
Larry, real quick before you step down. So we're in the process of creating that stormwater maintenance agreement. Chris and I reviewed it late last week, and the attorneys reviewed it as well. So we'll be sending that over to the developer this week.
Okay.
That specifically talks about maintenance, keep things clean, clean out, all the drainage areas and maintaining the vegetation and aeration and all those things. So.
And does that have a fallback if the LLC is not able to satisfy that?
We can verify that. Like I said, we just got the final draft last week. And so we're running through all that right now.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else like to speak in the public meeting?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. My name is Chris Bowers. I'm with the Schuster Law Group at 1316 Village Creek Parkway in Plano. But before, I've been in private practice now for 7 years, helping developers and other property owners when they have issues with cities. But before that, I was with the city of Dallas for 27 years, worked on zoning matters and eminent domain and related matters for many years there. And then the last 10 years, I was supervising all of the city's litigation as the first assistant city attorney. What I want to bring to your attention tonight is that there is a new state law that I believe prohibits the town from having any sort of concept plan requirement or development plan requirement. It is House Bill 3699. It was took effect in September 1st, 2023, and I'm going to read it to you. It's in chapter 212-004G. It's very short. The governing body of a municipality or the municipal authority responsible for approving plats, in other words, you and the council, may not require an analysis, study, document, agreement, or similar requirement to be included in or as a part of an application for a plat, development permit, or subdivision of land that is not explicitly allowed by state law. And when I look at state law, chapter 212, There is nothing there that allows a town to have a development plan or a concept plan required as a part of a plat. And it's not just Chris Bowers saying this. TML has given advice to cities. It was dated September 1st, 2023. It's the legislative update number 35, where they bring this to cities' attention across the state. And then they make some recommendations on how cities can try to skirt that and get around that. And I can tell you this, and Mr. Kennedy and his company, he lives here, he wants to work with you, he wants to make his neighbors happy. But if push comes to shove and he can't get approval, and he will work with reasonable request, then I can tell you my experience with the judges in Denton County, and if they look at some of these suggestions made in the TML, and if a town tried to do some of that, I don't think the judges in Denton County are going to look upon it very favorably. So my request to you is, let's just approve this, move on. Let's put the preliminary plat on the agenda next month. Let's have that discussion at that time. And let's also, because the town does have an obligation, as I'm sure you know, that once the application for a preliminary plat is submitted, you have 30 days to approve or deny it, or approve it with conditions. And in this case, Mr. Kennedy and his company feel that he just can't get that. It just keeps on being pushed up and down the city's bureaucracy. So last but not least, I know there was concern brought about whether the city could be liable if it approved a plat and then somebody was drowned in the pond or whatever. A city is not going to be liable for that. That's on private property. The Tort Claims Act will protect the city anytime it approves a plat or a building permit. That's just permission to do something, but who's at fault is the person who actually does it, not the city giving permission for it. Thank you very much.
What else? Hearing none, I would like to close the public hearing at 6:43. Clock's a minute off. Okay, so a couple of things that I'd like to say before we kind of launch into our discussion. First, I'd like to read 2.4B, which are the procedures and submission requirements for development plan approval. Purpose: the development plan is a plan used for discussion purposes between the subdivider developer and the town. It is intended to discover and discuss development issues prior to the submission of other plat or development applications. Very broad, but again, it's just to kind of facilitate. And it goes on in section F, it says effective review. The development plan shall be used only as an aid to show anticipated layout of proposed development and to assess adequacy of public facility services that will be needed to serve the proposed development. Any proposed use or development depicted on the development plan shall not be deemed formal authorization or approval to proceed by the town until a preliminary plat or final plat is approved for the development. i.e., the development plan approval is thought of as a general acknowledgement of the town of the proposed layout generally conforms to the town's subdivision regulations, and the proposed development can be adequately served by required public facilities. The upshot of that, in my opinion, is this group does not rule on HOA agreements. We don't rule on easement agreements. We are not a legal group. We are simply looking at planning the subdivision and planning ordinances. Does this meet the planning and zoning subdivision ordinances? That's what we do. So I think it's useful for the developer, council, whatever, to hear the opinions of the local citizens and neighboring landowners regarding their concerns about legal contracts. And it's useful for the town administrator to hear it and to give his opinion on, the status of these agreements. Those agreements do not need to be in place for the approval of a development plan. It's just that simple. That's my opinion. Do I hear any discussion? No. I mean, it's, out of curiosity, yes, I would love to know how Larry's problem gets solved. I'd love to know how Robin's problem gets solved, but frankly, that's off to the council. That's off to our town legal counsel and our town administrator, not us. So that's just my opinion on that. As to Mr. Bauer's comments, I think that's very useful. Again, not a lawyer. We've got a town council who should have informed us of this, but I think everyone here should be aware that there is a committee set up, which you're on, and one other council, Kim's on, to review our town ordinances in regard to the development process. And they have made a decision to engage an outside consultant to look at the development process in surrounding towns and revamp our development procedures to latest and greatest state of the art, compliant with the Texas law process. Would you care to see
So,
that?
yes, Mark, so just a correction there. We're looking at potentially bringing on a consultant.
Okay.
There's a lot of heavy lifting that has to be done to determine that. And at the end of the day, the council will have to, we just give recommendations. So the council will have to determine if that's what they want to do. So we're on the early stages of looking at a scope of work, what that potentially will include. As it relates to the master plan, the master plan and the ordinances and the engineering standards and how all those are connected. So we're looking at that currently as a committee to give recommendations to the council. If they choose to pursue a consultant, then that's ultimately up to them to do.
Right. So I guess I would like it put in the minutes that I, maybe the rest of us, would like to ask our town council to review House Bill 3699, as pointed out by Mr. Bowers. They don't need to report to us, but the legal counsel and administrator should report to the council their understanding of that bill and the effect on our process. To be honest, if I get put out of work, I'm happy, so not to worry about that. Also, I guess I just might observe that despite the Texas law, I think it would be very risky for a developer to walk in here and go, here's my preliminary plat. No, there's a lot of things that have come up in the process that I think help develop, make that preliminary plat so that when it comes in, it's one and done, as opposed to, no, you got to change this, change that. Because I know the preliminary plat that we got had 25 pages, 30 pages. It was a huge fat thing. So, yes, maybe towns can do without concept of development plans, but they sure ought to have something that have some conversations before it gets to the stage of an engineered preliminary plat. I'm not a developer, so if they want to take that chance and get it rejected time after time, that's fine too. So, okay.
Chairman, just on that note, if you recall the last meeting, we surfaced 3 concerns. One was accommodations on the Douglas property, accommodations on the Johnson property, and clarity around a maintenance agreement for the homeowner, so they're not stuck with managing this thing, that there's clarity on what's going to take place there.
Yes.
Not our job to say yay or nay, but they were recommendations, and sure enough, it got to council. Those 3 things weren't there, and now it's back here.
Right.
So there is value in what you're saying about us weighing in on some of this stuff before you say, here's our plan.
But again, that's if that's the law, that's the developer's choice.
That's where it goes.
That's where it goes. So I guess I would like to flip this over to Chris, because again, none of us are engineers. McAdams has their seal on these drawings, which says that they're putting their professional reputation on the line, that this works and that this is right. But this is not the stage for full hydrology studies. We don't need that to approve this. That's for preliminary. Any other comments from you in terms of the changes to this plan versus what we saw last time? Anything we need to consider?
No, really, the only change from last time was concentrated at the pond. I do want to note that there was, in fact, in here, there's that showing of the construction entrance right off of Jernigan that has in fact been constructed, and they did do the road repairs that were part of some of the initial coordination.
Okay, yeah, that was one of the earlier discussions.
Yep.
All right. Any other questions for the developer or Paul or? And I guess, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the agreement as it stands now, the easement is between an individual and an LLC, which are separate entities, even though it's the same guy both. So to me, doesn't make it an invalid contract. But you're right, if he dies, then you got a problem on both sides, so. Sure, Mike.
Michael Candidate, 1081 Post Oak Road, Copper Canyon, Texas. Just to clarify a few things. One, the development plan is a development plan, high flyover, but we've been here for months. We're not asking for any variances. We're not asking for anything that doesn't meet the code, and that's all the way through our preliminary and final plat right now. Input we've taken to heart, and we've done our best to try and, overdo things. But I mean, you can run your plan through if you're not asking for any variances, because, if the plan's right and everything meets the codes and the laws, you have to approve it. So that's one thing. The pond, my pond's doing the same thing. It's brown. I just went and got some pond dye, and it's got that green thing. It's an algae bloom. I got it in a couple other ponds, and I'm sure there's several other ones that got it. But the water went brown just after all this rain, and we've had grass in our pasture. You can come look. I'll send you a picture when I get home. I mean, it probably looks just like your pond. We have no construction. It's got 2 layers of silt fence, and there's I'd say 1,000 foot of grass before you reach disturbed soil. So, I mean, it meets all the EPA standards, as far as that goes, TCQ and all that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Again, that's not what we're talking about tonight. So, but I appreciate the comment.
Anyway, that's it. I mean, we're just trying to get our stuff through, and it's become very difficult. And I just want to make sure that it starts going through now. Appreciate it.
Other comments? All right. So I think we have an action item here to make a recommendation to town council regarding this plan. Do I hear a motion to recommend that this plan be recommended to the town council for consideration?
So I want to propose one thing. So with regard to this plan, if we're approving it tonight, it needs to not say release for construction.
That's
Right? And we've had issues in the past with words on these documents being considered. So that needs to not be on it. If we pass it, my opinion is we pass it with the expectation that gets removed before it goes any further.
and that's fine. Again, I consider that more in the typo category than
I understand, but
because nothing can be done.
We had a prior document that caused all kinds of havoc.
Yes,
Right? So documents have to be clean before they get passed. That's my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there was a comment made at the opening of the meeting that we had approved the preliminary
That's
plat.
one reference.
Right.
Which we did.
Right, so.
All right. So at the moment on the floor, we have a motion to approve recommending this development plan to the town council with the contingency that the words for release for construction be removed from the bottom of the plan. That's a motion. That's fair. Do we hear a second? Second from Jeff. Discussion, any discussion, further changes to the motion?
No, I'll just say, I mean, again, I went back and looked at my notes from the first meeting, and the 3 things I brought up, it sounds like just progress with all 3 of those.
And the council did consider.
Right.
All right.
Good progress.
So in that case, I guess I will call the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor? All in favor? It's unanimous. We recommend this plan to the town council for their consideration with the contingency that language be corrected on the bottom of the. All right. Any further, there appears to be nothing further on our agenda. So in that case, I think we're adjourned. Thank you all.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I actually don't need to. I'm chairman. I can adjourn. Thank you anyway. It's the only power I've got.